Joining me now is Chief Rebel News Australia reporter Avi Yemini. Avi, you were at the March for Australia in Melbourne. You were attacked when you attempted to ask questions of a small group of neo-Nazis who were causing disruptions at the protest. Let's have a quick look at a little of what happened. Avi, tell me about what happened there. Were you at all fearful when you approached those cosplaying Nazis?
To be honest, I wasn't even approaching the Nazis. We were there talking to people in the crowd, and people pointed out that they were there. Almost everybody we spoke to said that they don't like them, they have nothing to do with them. In fact, we've pulled out footage that showed them barging in. So police let them in, didn't follow them. Once they were in and people protested against them being there, like the majority of the crowd, they literally bashed their way into it. And then when I got close, they actually, when you watch the live feed, because we ran a 4-hour live feed, straight, unedited, raw, people get to see what actually happened. And it's nothing like what you're seeing being reported today. And they came up to me, they tried to kick us out. My security stepped in and they turned immediately violent. They were essentially hijacking, physically hijacking the entire event for most of the people.
And they weren't wanted there. You're saying the crowd wanted them gone?
This is not my opinion. Yeah, it's not my opinion. People can watch it. I know you've got the footage. We literally have it raw.
And I was watching some of that live coverage, and I think it's really quite invaluable to see. And it also happened during the lockdown protests, where you look at that raw footage and it was so different to what the media were telling you, what these protesters were about. What was your impression of those protests generally? What were the vast majority of people there? Why were they there? What was upsetting them about what's happening in Australia today?
I'll be honest with you, Rita. I went into it this time. I wasn't sure where I was placed. I wasn't sure how many people would hate me, like me, because the last 2 years has been crazy. We've seen a shift even on the right. And I didn't know how many real racists were going to be there, how many people that hate Jews or would just hate me for who I am. I went there and you watch in the live feed and it's literally 3 hours of pretty much almost everyone, 99.95% of the people walking up and saying, I'm here for Australia. Most of their grievances are either with mass immigration or just the cost of like the country, the state of the country at the moment, and they just love this country. And you had two groups that were perpetuating violence. You had, and they looked similar. They were both, ironically, pro-Palestine. That's the funny thing. I actually asked at one point the neo-Nazis, why didn't they just join the other side? Because they started chanting to me about genocide. They look the same. They dress the same. They're just as fascist. So, but the majority of people, the actual people that went there to march yesterday, and it was beautiful to see so many Australian flags and people so proud. They were there because they love this country. And for them, the country is not about race. It wasn't about race for the vast majority of people. It is insane to me that The Age, for example, is running a headline. And that's literally, we have so much content, 4 hours to work through, just so many important little bits that happen. Obviously, not everyone has the time to watch 4-hour live stream, as entertaining as I am. But their headline is saying pro-Palestinian versus Nazis, and they have a picture of a guy getting punched in the face on the front cover, splashed. Now, they don't tell you anything about the guy, and we're meant to assume he's a Nazi. Yeah. You know, I did their job. I actually spoke to that guy live. They could have ripped it off our live. You know why he was attacked by the pro-Palestinians? Not because he was a Nazi, but because he had a Star of David on his chest and he was bleeding from his head. He got hit with a metal pole, and we have that footage. I've taken off a minute to drop that story now to show that the media is, they've got a narrative. They came with the narrative. They were prepared with the narrative, and they've just been publishing no matter what actually happened on the day. And I think that Victoria Police have to be held accountable for their role in what happened yesterday, because the vast majority of people, like I said, didn't want the Nazis to be there, but they couldn't do anything about it. I had two massive security guards, and you see in the footage, one of my security guards is outnumbered 5-1. And I'm only here, okay, because
Yeah,
I
where
have
were the
those.
cops? Where were the
They didn't come.
cops?
Did not
And
come.
the same thing happened with that women's march on the steps of Parliament, Spring Street, where the neo-Nazis were allowed to break the police lines and go and hijack the women's march. I don't know why they keep allowing this to happen.
The
You
police
mentioned the
minister
media
is
now.
condemning. The police minister is condemning. Sorry to cut you off. Just it's outrageous. The police minister is condemning those who went to protest today, calling them unhinged or something like that. It's time to hold the police accountable here. The police should have done their job, and part of their job was to protect the average Aussie that was there for the right reason.
Avi, you mentioned the media being quick to demonise this rally, the Age's false reporting, but we also had Conservative politicians telling people not to attend. Does the centre-right in this country need to develop a bit of a backbone and stop letting the left set the agenda?
No, it gave a free kick to the left. Essentially, what happened was the Conservative, the establishment, they jumped on board with this condemning of the protesters, which so that seemed to be the tactic by the police on the day. Was like, all right, let's lock them into a space and we'll let the Nazis go in there and they can rule that place, because what we're going to do anyways is demonize the entire crowd. They've been demonized for weeks leading up to it, and they're going to get demonized after. So they felt no responsibility for what happens inside the actual protest. Yeah, if the Conservative, both the Liberal Party and just personalities, commentators, if everybody had a bit of a backbone, you don't have to encourage people to go, but don't condemn people for going to stand up for Australia. I wasn't encouraging people to go because I didn't know what was going to actually happen on that day. I didn't know if it was going to be full of Nazis and racists and that, but it absolutely wasn't. It was majority not. And you see across the country, the Nazis strategically placed themselves at the front of everything, and whether they forced or in Melbourne they ended up getting welcomed onto stage, but then they cheered from the front to create the vibe as if they're being celebrated there. But if you look beyond the first two rows of everything, you see people turning their backs, booing, people walking away. We captured on the live people literally walking away from the rally when they realised that it was Nazis being platformed. The Conservatives have to grow a backbone in Australia. Otherwise, look at us. Look where we are now.
Yeah.
We've been lacking a backbone for so many years. And, look where that's taken us.
Avi Yemini, thank you so much for your time tonight.